You're listening to Pop This, the podcast where two women talk about everything pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen and Andrea Warner.
So is it hot enough for you?
Ugh.
I just haven't been able to say that yet this year, and I know that for those of us in Vancouver, there was a very lengthy rainy period, which, you know, let's be honest, happens a lot in Vancouver. It rains a lot. We get the jokes, haha. But It did rain an awful lot, and it was pretty cold. And I believe there were people putting the heat on in May, maybe into June. But now it feels insane.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm doing very well. How about you guys?
You know me, like I really hate the heat so desperately. I want it to always be like between say like 17 and 23 is my ideal temperature.
Yeah.
I like blue skies and I like wind. I love wind. So
what a funny thing to say. I love blue skies and wind.
I do.
You should be living in, because the jokes they make, like when I first went to the Netherlands, like you just get used to seeing pictures of windmills, right? Everyone's got a windmill. And there aren't quite as many of those old traditional ones. But once you get there, it's so windy all the gosh darn time. And the weather changes you've been.
Yeah, I have not been, but I was just nodding along with you because I was thinking about Victoria actually was quite an ideal climate for me because it really never, especially if you're living sort of along the coast in Victoria, it's never really above like 25 and it's always windy.
Yeah, and I you know, all the credit to those people in cities which we are meant to love so much, such as New York, Toronto, London. But they get well, maybe not London doesn't get so stinking cold, but I don't know, like Toronto, and I guess everyone always says to you, you should definitely see Toronto in the spring or fall, right?
Well, stinking hot and stinking cold, right?
Like right, exactly.
Like I've done Toronto winter a couple times with small trips, but I always manage to avoid significant snowfalls. So I have literally had at least 3 trips to Toronto in January where I have landed the 1 week between significant snowstorms. And I've always been so lucky with that. But the summer that I lived in New York, that was my first experience ever with, like just, you know, 37 degrees plus humidity. My hair had never seen anything like it. Like I was just an explosion.
What did you look like? Just a big poof? No one can see my arms.
Truly,
wow.
Just the, like I looked like 6 shrubs had been sort of commingled into just a beautiful round ball. That was exactly, yeah.
Well, I think what makes it like worse, like more noticeable this summer is that we're all working at home too.
Totally.
Yeah,
usually,
exactly.
you know, like we're in air conditioned offices during the day.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of brace yourself for going home and suffering through a hot evening. But at least you have that, like, you know, 8 hours in air conditioning.
You're right. I had not put that together. I mean, if I go into a store, I get a burst of air conditioning, but or just go for a drive and take those windows down and get going, right? But
we have a little portable air conditioner unit in our apartment that like we can open our screen door and then sort of it really works for cooling the main living room area down, but like our bedroom is ridiculous. And then recording at home doing this, like I can't, you know, we can't have the fan on, I can't have a window open, like it's
like we're at VPL though in a studio.
Truly, it is.
Yes,
exactly,
there is very toasty in there for sure.
It really reminds me of being in the VPL recording.
But Lisa, are your dogs suffering extra? Because my dog,
their walks aren't quite as fun. Like, you know, they get pretty exhausted quickly, and they come home and dart right for the water bowl. So kind of like for a month or two, I'm panicked that I might forget to keep filling the water bowl. I keep seeing it and keep topping it up, but and then when they come in, they just sort of lay on their sides, and It looks like those dogs outside in like the outback on those Australian shows, right?
Yeah.
Those dogs just trying to find shade and lay there. So
Well,
yeah, they don't really complain. I don't know what a dog would look like if it complained, but
my
I
dog
was
just starts barking incessantly, and he's
Oh, from the heat.
yeah, just so well,
Oh,
he's agitated, and so
yeah.
I read that you can cool dogs down by like putting their paws in cold water, and so we've been trying to do that a little in the night just to help him, and we've got a cooling mat for him to lie on, but yeah, he's real hot.
Wow. Okay,
Like
maybe
I mean,
he's young though too, right? He's what?
yeah,
Yeah.
he's a year and a half.
Yeah, so Cash is 11, so he's had a few summers.
Yeah.
He's used to it.
So yeah, he just
Yeah.
kind of lays there on his side and looks up at you every once in a while, like. But yeah, no, I mean, I'd like people to try and take my paws and put them in water. I think that'd be so nice.
I really honestly I wish that we had like a little side yard or a slightly bigger patio where I could get a kiddie pool and just fill it with cold water and sit in it. I have no qualms about being
I could do. You
the
can come over to
weirdo.
my house and do that if you want.
Really?
Yeah, you can.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, we can make some pina coladas and just sit out there and.
We
In the
each
rain,
get our
no
own
worries.
pool though, obviously, because we have to be physically distanced.
Yes.
So
Oh, how
each of
fun would that be? Those are things that make me think of. I remember when my grandparents, their neighbors had. It was a big above ground pool, but it was a really good pool. And I remember my brother and I would just go over there and like literally the whole day,
Yeah.
like, noon till 10. Like you would not, they'd make you get out, maybe you need a sandwich, which you'd like, and then, okay, if I have to, and then jump right back in again. And gosh, I just feel like there might have even been hotter summers. I just didn't know because I was in a pool all day. So
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
So, I mean, how much would it take for us to get an above ground pool for your backyard, Lisa?
right? I know, but it's such a short. Like even when I got my car, I just didn't get air conditioning, and everyone, oh, why didn't you get air conditioning? Because it's not actually what would you figure 1 to 2 months tops of the year. It's
Oh,
Yeah.
I like a cold car. I've got air conditioning
Oh,
on
okay.
relatively
Yeah.
frequently.
but I mean, I'm talking about like the stifling weather. How long would you say?
Yeah, it's 2 months, but I am a toasty girl. I just want to I kind of wish I was cold-blooded because then I would just, always be like 3 degrees cooler than I am.
I'm surprised like Weird Al didn't do a cover of like Foreigners. I'm hot blooded, but he did I'm cold blooded and just some lizards. Wouldn't that have been fun?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't want to tell Weird Al how to do his job.
It's not too late. He could do it now.
because you
if he
get.
wanted to.
I'm hot blooded. Check it and see. I got a fever of -3. See, it's right there. It's just.
Well, I mean, I feel like we've reached some kind of delirium. So let's pivot. I'm
Okay.
Andrea Warner,
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
I'm Andrea Gin.
and we are Pop This. We're so excited to talk about this subject with you guys. I have chatted about it on the podcast previously.
Yes, you did.
I can't stop talking about it, thinking about it.
I think there's just like a real lot of articles and think pieces out about it. All of a sudden, in the last month, they really
Yeah.
exploded. Because I know it came out in England in June, right?
I
that
think
right?
it finished in England in
Oh,
June.
fin-
It came.
oh,
It
finished,
started
okay.
here in like late June or early July,
Yeah.
and so there. I may destroy you.
That's it. I
what
was
we're
going to say we
talking
haven't
about
even
today.
said it yet.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what we're talking about. I may destroy you. Just sort of like it's probably the most talked about show I think this summer.
Yeah.
Particularly just like Michaela Cole's, all of the interviews with Michaela Cole have been really phenomenal and interesting, and her perspective has been so fascinating. She's also definitely genuinely a game changer for the television industry as a 32-year-old Black woman who now has 2 shows that she has created under her belt that have both been such a hugely important culturally and in the conversational zeitgeist. And so I think Yeah, I'm just so excited to talk. We're only going to talk about the first 5 episodes of the show. So if you are watching I May Destroy You and you are concerned that we are going to spoil things for you, we are not going to go beyond episode 5 at this point. Also, I think like just this is definitely the type of episode where we're going to be talking a lot about sexual assault and rape and being drugged. And so if those things are uncomfortable, like I just want to give people a heads up. Take care of yourself and figure out the best way for you to sort of think about this content or not think about this content.
Yeah, and it's also a very intense show, I have to say. If you've, been spending your kind of summer trying to find those escapist kind of shows, that's not what we're doing here today is all. Also, I wanted to mention that.
Yeah, it is funny, but it's also very serious. It is
funny.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's also very serious.
Yeah.
AG, do you want to do the background? And then Lisa, do you want to do the synopsis?
Sure. I May Destroy You is a British comedy drama television series created, written, co-directed, and executive produced by Michaela Cole for BBC One and HBO. The series is set in London and stars Cole as Arabella, a young woman who seeks to rebuild her life after being raped. That's from Wikipedia.
And the synopsis. Arabella is a Twitter star turned novelist who found fame with her debut book, Chronicles of a Fed Up Millennial, and is publicly celebrated as a millennial icon. While struggling to meet a deadline for her second book, she takes a break from work to meet up with friends on a night out in London. The following morning, she struggles to remember what happened to her and tries to piece it together with the help of her friend, Terry, and Kwame.
Perfect. So, like, have either of you seen Chewing Gum? I haven't.
I have not. No.
I have.
You have? Okay, awesome.
Yeah. It came out a while ago. It's different than this. It's a sort of it's a sitcom.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's actually, it was really, I remember it being really hilarious. And it's about she plays this Christian character who wants to have sex. And it's got sort of like, the same hilarious, like kind of crude comedy, like that's so ballsy. And so it seems like it's so fresh and so inventive and original. And so you can see like the beginnings of her writing and, her comedic style kind of coming through in I May Destroy You. Just like kind of jokes that come from a dark place sometimes, or stuff that people don't joke about,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a really funny series. I would highly recommend watching that.
I definitely will after this. Yeah.
I think CBC Gem just picked up Chewing Gum, and I think
it's a good call.
Yeah, I think it's going to air on the CBC Gem because Netflix isn't airing it anymore. I know it had been on Netflix for a while, but it hasn't been for the last several months.
Yeah, the only thing is that the accents are so like heavy London accents or British accents and the characters all talk very fast that sometimes it was just hard for me to understand what they were saying. It was that classic thing where you're watching British actors on TV and you need like closed captioning at the bottom to understand what they're saying because there's a lot of slang and they're talking really fast.
Yeah. I've actually started watching almost all television with closed captioning on. And it's really
why?
Well, I think it started when I was watching films with my friends over quarantine. I didn't want to have it be too loud for them while we were like all watching it via and still connected via like our Hangouts and our Google Hangouts and stuff. And so I wanted the volume to be not blasting into their computers. But like the longer that we did it, the more we realized how much better it made the viewing experience.
Wow.
Just because like you're, I don't know, like I found myself that like my brain was watching the visuals and I was hearing most things, but sometimes I would just, I don't know, I would get sidelined by something else and miss whatever the joke was. Cause like think sometimes audio tracks get kind of muffled in the mixing. And so this really, actually for the last 5 months, I've mostly watched almost everything with closed captioning, regardless of what, who is doing the speaking.
Interesting. Yeah, because my husband Joe is like his family's from England, so he has a real better sense of understanding the English accent, and we'd be watching, and then he just like be laughing out loud at all these jokes that I totally like did not hear, did not understand.
I watch a lot of British TV, like like the mysteries and comedies and game shows and all those things. And I feel like it does take a while to, like you said, some of those slang terms or accents. I remember watching an Oasis documentary, and they had subtitles on for Liam. But it was a waste of time because every second word was, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Yeah, I got it. You didn't actually say anything. So, yeah, I know.
But I mean, half the time we didn't know what he meant. And like, they think that does stand
half
true.
the time it was written for him. So,
I'm really excited to check out Chewing Gum based on like how strongly I feel about I May Destroy You. So tell me a little bit about, because I've talked so much already about my feelings around this show. Tell me a little bit for both of you, like what have been some of your big takeaways from the first 5 episodes?
Go ahead.
Well, for me, it's, I went back and rewatched the first few episodes again because in anticipation of doing this podcast, and it's this thing where this sort of processing and understanding what's happening on the show with the characters and how terrible things that they're not processing are happening to them, but like they're too busy with their lives, or they have all these other things going on, and they just like they're trying to deal with it, and they're kind of not dealing with it, and just like having all of these layers and layers and layers just really makes you think about life and just how that ends up happening to people, and how like you don't necessarily want to stop your life and think about something that's happened to you, and as a result it just kind of like you just compartmentalize it, and you just kind of try to forget about it, and just like how that just happens so easily and happens to everybody. And to me that has been really kind of interesting to think about.
I think also what she's done that's very smart is thrown in how technology has really impacted that ability to not confront or sit with your issues, because you always have a podcast, a song, an app. I mean, we're watching her friend manage a hookup while he's taking his mom grocery shopping. I mean, that is... You didn't even give yourself like just 15 minutes of ennui working through the aisles of a lonely grocery store, right? Which, I think that, I mean, I don't know, like there will probably come a time where we won't have that contrast to be discussing, which we are right now, because there's lots of ways to kind of remember before we had all of those options all the time. And one day we just won't be, we'll just be so used to, like if I'm having a hard time, this has been an old tradition. I would, like, if I was feeling a bit lonely and I'd come home, you put the TV on in the house, right? That way there's always a voice going. And I think that's been people falling asleep in front of the TV but there's the options to take that out with you now. So you don't have to have moments where you're like, wow, I have to, like you say, confront something. So I think that's been a really clever way that she's written that in. Even, I laugh so hard, even at the beginning when she's supposed to be writing the book and she Googles, how do you write a book fast?
Like, I thought that was so funny.
It's funny on so many levels. But just the idea that I might be able to get saved by something here, right? Even though rationally she knows it's only I need 6 hours or 10 hours or whatever, 20 hours or something like that. So that's quite funny. But what I always admire shows that have a really great sense of themselves. And I love how it just started with us in Italy and I didn't know what was going on. No idea. And so I feel like the world she's created, these people, these characters, every one of them, even the annoying white people, are very unique and interesting and make up this world that she's in. And the look of the show, her style is amazing. So I like everything about it.
But I didn't quite realize until I read the interview that you linked to in our outline, A-dubs, about how she kind of loosely based this on her own personal experience.
Yeah, while she was working on chewing gum, I think she said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
she was writing the second season of Chewing Gum, and she was spiked or drugged at a bar and sexually assaulted by two men, and essentially the entire thing that is depicted in that the first and second episodes is relatively true to what her own experience was. In the show Arabella, we don't know yet who has been involved in her assault. We don't really know. We don't really have any answers yet. About what happened specifically. We know that there's like a terrible feeling that she has. That like physically she feels super awful from being drugged. Physically she feels awful from the trauma that her body has gone through, even if she wasn't fully aware of what was happening to her at the time because of the drug. But she knows something is really wrong. And like, I think watching her fight and resist that knowledge, like I think the moment when she's at the police station and she's describing what is happening over and over, or like sort of articulating it, and the real collapsing moment is when the police officer says, well, like, who is he looking at? And like and she brings her shirt up to her face and just like this, like, it's so harrowing cry. And it's such a heartbreaking and like just it's like this moment that I think crystallizes how much vulnerability is like at work in this show at all times. Like even when she's compartmentalizing, or Kwame's compartmentalizing, or even when everybody is sort of like doing their best to sort of live the normal lives that, sort of like the before trauma and after trauma, and like sort of trying to make a bridge between those two things. Like, I just feel like there's so much like nuanced emotion happening in every moment, like from joy to grief to rage. And it's a pretty spectacular palette that she's working with as a writer and as an actor. Like I can't, like, it's just really sort of a thought-provoking thing, considering that she's basing this on her own experiences of assault, and is able to sort of then take those experiences and hold up this sort of like mirror for all the rest of us to sort of see these refracted, broken things happening. I can't, like, my brain actually can't understand how she's able to do this show.
No, and I think it is interesting to watch the complexity of her emotions, because I think, for someone like myself who has never gone through anything like that, my sense of it would be that you report it and then you hope someone's caught. Like, that, and I hadn't really thought about all the other things that are, you know what I mean? That you go through during, like, the flashbacks we see her having, to things that she can't even know she's triggered by them because she doesn't remember.
Exactly. Yeah.
So they're coming up out of nowhere, basically. And how much of, like, how, I mean, I think we all know this, but to watch it unfold is that, being a victim of this isn't just that crime at that moment. It is that long journey you have to try and reconcile everything that happened.
Yeah, and it's also just like watching her try and process and figure out what happened to her, but at the same time, she's still like trying to meet these deadlines. She has meetings with her publishers and editors who are pressuring her to, apply for things and to have work ready to show at things, and it's just this like juggling act to keep everything going. And it's like, how do you figure out how you, like, because you're right, Lisa, like, what you think would need to happen is for her to sit down and, go to counseling and try to work out what happened and try to recall exactly, what happened that night. But it's just like, she's so sort of engulfed by her normal life of like dealing with her, long distance relationship, dealing with her deadline.
Well, it's like she really wants it to be a normal life. Like, I want to do this, even starting a kind of affair, I guess, or I don't know, with Zane, like, starting that up and continuing to go through that when now she's realizing that he assaulted her as well. But also kind of wanting to make him go through something, like to, and how he's judging her for, oh, come, you're always on your phone. It's like, oh, buddy, really?
Well, and that's like she has a level of fame that he feels that she does not deserve.
Mm-hmm.
He feels like he deserves it. We know that he's not a good man.
Yeah.
And like, and I think that like, all these conversations that we have had for the last several years, very meaningful conversations we've had for the last several years about consent, I just haven't seen all the nuances of that sort of coalesce in the same way that I'm seeing it unfold on I May Destroy You. Like when Kwame was assaulted, it was devastating. I mean, we're there, we're going through it sort of with the character. You're just sort of like, I held my breath the whole time and I felt, just ugh. And it was so devastating to watch, and then to sort of watch, his experience with the police be so different than hers, and like have that sort of like homophobic layer from the police officers, have that sort of like, well, men don't get assaulted layer from the police officers, and just I thought it's just such an ambitious show. I did not understand when we started out that we were going to be really looking at assault and consent from this like kaleidoscopic sort of like, not just a 360, like we're going round and round and round,
Yeah.
And I didn't know that.
And we're doing flashbacks into their lives
and
as
jumping
well.
in time and like so much.
And to watch her friend Terry situation in Italy.
Yeah, where she's like, I'm gonna get some, and then she does, and she does so spectacularly. Go Terry.
Go Terry. And now her thinking, what was and going through all of her thoughts, and then of course our sex scene in Italy, which
okay, can I know that I love this. I know that I've talked about this sex scene before.
You just told us to watch it, and
I told you to watch it, but now can I just spend like 2 minutes talking about why I think it's so important to sort of depict like period sex, and this particular scene of period sex being so pivotal. Like, for anyone who is listening who has this like super heavy flow and this like all this stigma of attached to, one, having sex on your period, and two, having like losing clots, like lots of women have gone through that, lots of people have gone through that. It's not really talked about. But like, if you have ever had like a bunch of clots leave your body, which I have, so this is where I'm just like so personally identifying with this particular scene, but like the impulse is actually to touch it and just be like kind of squishy with it. And you're like, oh, it's finger painting. And so to watch that character do that in that moment, I screamed. I had my hands in the air. I could not believe what I was seeing, because I just never imagined, honestly, a world in which we were going to be watching, I understand, premium cable television, but just watching that scene unfold. Like, not just taking out her tampon for her, which, again, amazing, wonderful, but like to not have him abjectly be grossed out by what is a very natural occurrence in the body. I just was like,
yes. I'm
so grateful.
Yeah, no, it was a lot, I have to say, because we don't see that very often. You know what? It makes me think of a Kids in the Hall sketch, which is, mid-90s, where it's like, Dave Foley, I'm the guy who's comfortable with menstruation. It was like, I'm the guy that will go and get whatever you need, and at the time, it was like, a ridiculous. Why that felt groundbreaking. There was a man and also a man saying, "I'm okay with this." And then I think we took a long pause from that to hear.
There's so much shame around like people having periods and like
blue liquid on TV on like how troubling is that for? I don't blame some guy for being extremely confused unless he's had a very frank mother, a good sex education, or some sisters to understand that menstruation's not blue.
It's so frustrating to me. Like to this day, I know so many women friends and friends who may not identify as women but have periods, and the stigma around like they're just like they've been told it's gross and like that they don't want to like that it's not it's all these like sort of just all of these things around how you basically can't utilize you can't experience pleasure while you're having your period because it's too gross. Yeah. And it frustrates me so much because one, you know what? I'm going to just be honest. Having sex while you have your period, great for cramp relief. So number one, so good for cramp relief. Number two, 100% like if you are with someone who is super grossed out by your body having a period, I'm just going to say it. Don't be with them. Leave them. I will walk you through anything you want because those people cannot be trusted if they are so grossed out by your body.
Yeah, you hope that this is like some kind of that with cable, with people being honest, because I mean, there's no real win for for women in that because either they're gross because they have a menstrual cycle and then they'll become gross again when they don't. So there's like an unwinnable playing field when it comes to menstruation. So if we don't get some bold people there, just normalizing all of the normal functions of your body, I'm going to be very disappointed for one.
Yeah, I have a lot of strong feelings around this. Also, I mean, I can tell a story right now if you'd like.
Yeah, tell us a story.
Okay.
Great. So, maybe I have told this on this podcast before. I don't know. Like the first weekend that Carlos and I moved into our new place when like a long time ago, like 13 years ago, we were having a shower together and I dropped a clot on his foot in the shower. He was like, "Hey, what's that?"
Oh.
And I was like, "Oh, well, this is embarrassing, but yeah, I just dropped a clot on your foot." And
well, it's good to get a preview of your memoir one day.
Honestly, this is why
I'm for sure that'll get in there.
Labeled myself clot queen for this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I honestly like his very just sort of casual. Like already he'd had to experience numerous difficult periods with me in our first year together, so he already knew lots of stuff. And he's always been very like super casual and chill. Lifelong Dan Savage reader since he was like 15. So that's, I always think that's really good.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. If you're a man and you've had that luck, I mean, well, actually it's lucky for everybody else really.
Well, he chose to he chose to have like sort of like a self-guided, informed education around, people's bodies and, sexual health and etc. And so he's always been very, very, very chill.
Well, I'm glad you rewarded him for all of his knowledge.
That's what I thought when I dropped a clot on his foot. I was like, well, welcome to, you are now officially my feminist ally. Yeah. Like, and you were not, no shame, nothing, mostly just like cool. And also, funny and neat. Excellent. And then, yeah.
I would do a slow clap right here. Well done, Carlos.
Yes, this is what we want him known for.
Yeah, well, we'll know him for other things too.
No.
But mainly this.
I want a lot of listeners to make deep eye contact with him if they see him on the street.
Whoa.
And just be like, "Cool dude, Clot."
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool dude. Yeah. Clot King, we can call him then.
But yeah, what a groundbreaking moment in this show.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
also,
And
like, that's like a pivot away from like all the non-consensual sex, like to show consensual sex, and like I think,
Yeah,
and
and I
healthy,
think that's-
joyful consensual sex.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're also the whole interesting tension of this show is that, trying to find that place where it's, you want that kind of sex, and then this happens over here, and then this one happens over here, and how worried you are to go to the police and, to have to tell them. I mean, I think, there's always new versions. I think that a lot of people remember like watching Sex in the City when there was that shame around Samantha with her number. And how she didn't want to share it with a gynecologist because she thought that they would be judgy when it's
Yeah.
no one's business at all.
Yeah.
At all. And so I think it's great. There's always somebody taking that next charge and moving it into the next, realm of pop culture, which is to say, I'm making my own choices and this is what it looks like, but also assault and rape, this is how it can happen.
Yeah.
Well, this and the storyline of what happened to Terry when they were in Italy. They're in Italy, right? With the threesome that she's, so excited about having, and it just seems like, part of her romantic Italian experience. And then it just kind of turns at the end when she sees them walk away together and finds out and sort of understands that they know each other.
Yeah.
They knew each other from before. Like that to me was also too like such an interesting way to tell that story.
Yeah. That seemed like that was a crazy night out. Let's just call it that. That was one crazy night out in Italy.
It was, I mean, the sort of like casualness with which, Terry has sort of these, like sort of desires for herself and feels really, she's in Italy and she's having this like sort of epic sexual adventure, and she feels like so in charge of her own agency, and and just like to like that. It
and
is,
then just to have it like turn
a little
instantly.
bit, yeah, and have that turn. It is like really kind of devastating, and I mean, like it doesn't have to be that anything changes from what she gets out of the experience, but I understand like why it does for her, like it.
But so many of us have those, thoughts on what, like, because we had a foreshadow to that story when she was she's an actor going out for a commercial, and the first question they ask her is, what's the most liberated I think you've ever felt, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then she sort of sheepishly says a threesome. So we have, we're sort of like, oh, okay, I wonder what that is, or, we don't know. But then when we find out, it's a shorthand a lot of people have for like what you might do, right? Like, and not everyone wants to do that, but some people do, right? But you have a sense that maybe this is the thing that made me liberated, and then maybe it's not when you watch these two guys walk off and you feel like maybe this wasn't quite as organic as I thought it was.
Yeah. And just like how kind of like that does strip her of her agency for a little bit, and that sucks. It just
it does.
It just sucks. There have been so many, like we said, there have been so many great pieces written about the show, and so many interesting interviews with Michaela, and one of the things that I thought was super interesting is that Doreen St. Felix she wrote this sort of like little summary of the show for the New Yorker, and she described it as, quote, a hangout vehicle, a detective story, a nonlinear travel log, and a comic Bildungsroman. And that means a novel dealing with one person's formative years or spiritual education. I had not really known what a Bildungsroman was before. And I don't know that I'm pronouncing it correctly, by the way.
It's German, so we're all going to cut you some slack.
Yeah, thanks.
But I would agree with all of that. Yeah, it is.
Like watching the show with all the travel and with the going out for a night on the town in London, obviously like not including the getting roofied part, but prior to that, like I was, before everything sort of goes, bad in that first episode, I was like really nostalgic for pre-pandemic life.
That keeps happening to me
Yeah.
all
like
of
just
the time now.
oh my god, just watching
Ugh.
so many people together, and you're
Yeah.
hanging out with friends, and you're meeting like random people, and like I mean obviously it goes terribly wrong, but it was still felt really great to be in that for a minute.
I also like how I mean it's just in Canada we don't get a lot of British television content that is like deals with like the urban, people youth living urban lives and what they look like and what they sound like. At least I feel like that anyway.
You don't watch Coronation Street? Just kidding.
We have Coronation Street. We have Midsummer Murders.
But like actual city nightlife and like going to clubs.
I really love seeing this kind of depiction of like a Londoner's life in like contemporary times.
Yeah, I like, and I think also where the issues around race are very really interesting discussion in the show as well. When Arabella meets, I guess the book, is it the age book?
The publisher, I think.
The publisher, and says, "You're black," and the two, like, obviously, the publisher knew.
Yes.
But for her, that sense of, like, you could just, the joy, the comfort, I feel like I can talk to someone now, and how it changed the dynamic of the room. And
completely. Well,
it is a really great scene because it just shows all those levels, and you've watched her have to talk to those white, people from the book company already, and now she can relax, or, I mean, we don't know for sure, like, I don't, but there is a moment for her, at least, because I haven't really got to know this book publisher too well, that she feels that, I can be understood.
Yeah, and especially because like those agents are sort of like the agents seem very interested in extracting a youthful black experience from her, not in understanding her at all as a young black writer. Because
the women who are stopping her on the street to get a photo are of color, women of color, definitely, at the beginning.
Yeah, it's definitely like, and because like whatever her, oh my gosh, her Twitter, like, or her blog turned book deal, like it has made her a star with, like, millennial black women, and I think just this dynamic at the agent and the publisher level, it's really, that scene was so interesting to me, and I think like as it plays out, like I think it's gonna go to some really interesting places, because I just think there's like so much more that will be explored in that relationship.
So
I do too.
A-Dubs, as a person who writes books,
sure,
I felt like that sort of tension and the pressure of, like, her having to produce material to show people. This is like so well written through the book, and it's just like palpable through the show. I mean, do you feel like that's like an honest depiction of like the writing life?
Well, I mean, I think it felt very real in terms of just the sort of the onus to deliver on a deadline, and that her deadlines are entirely interlinked with her ability to pay her bills. So there's a really, really, like, there's something very hyper real about that. And, she, like, to be completely frank, really, it's not it's like this assault, this rape is disrupting her life on every level.
Right. Yeah.
And the practicality of it is also that, like, she doesn't really seem to have, like, a close familial relationship to her family, but she's got this chosen family around her. She doesn't have a bunch of money. She's got, like, this portion of the advance, and she has to deliver in order to really get the rest of her money. So that felt really real, and the pressure. I think there's different pressures on different types of writers, and I think particularly on writers who are having to write from, like, their personal experience and sort of that, again, that sort of extraction place. Like that felt really, it's not something I've experienced necessarily, but it felt very real watching her go through that and sort of describe it. And even just when Michaela Cole herself talks about, she wrote 191 drafts of I May Destroy You.
I know, I read about that.
191 drafts. So even in the profile that Alex Jung wrote for New York, and you know, this is her quote. Or sorry, so Alex Jung writes, she writes until there is no time left to write. Quote, I go up into a mountain and I come back with 12 containers of vomit. And these are the episodes, she says. My team acts as if it's a great takeaway. Like, wow, this food is really interesting. What are these aromas? What's here? She takes notes and retreats to another secluded area, often the vacant pied-à-terre of a wealthy benefactor, where she'll write and cry and expel her guts again. She wrote 191 drafts of I May Destroy You. Like, there's, and then Alex Jung finishes, there is no writer's room. She is her own fuel and engine. And I just,
wow.
Like,
it must be just like so wild to work with that.
Honestly, I can't imagine. And I think that we see that and feel that in the show, that she really is, she's just putting so much of herself on the page, and it's all her own, story. And she's writing these roles for her friends. That's the other thing that I think is really important. The actors, the main actors in this show are her friends. She went to school with Pape Essadieu, and she and Olorute Opia have also known each other for a long time. And so these are people that she knows intimately, that she trusts, and that she can, I think, write them characters that then they can take to the highest level as well. Because I think their performances are, like, all three of them, their performances are incredible.
Oh, yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, I also was really fascinated to read about how she turned down that Netflix deal because she wouldn't
get copyright. I know. Talk about know your worth. Hey, that is a moment that will be talked about forever, ever and ever. And boy, I guess Netflix is going, yeah.
Well, Netflix looks so bad. I mean,
they really do.
Honestly, like, she countered back so many times with like, well, can I have 5% of ownership of it? She was down to like 1%, and like Netflix just said, no, that's not the way we do it. But like,
But now they're going to have to do it that way because everyone's going to be coming in with, it's fascinating.
I don't think that that's necessarily true, though. I mean, obviously, I don't know all of Netflix's deals.
No, but it'll definitely have to come up more. There will be more people saying.
No, but I think that they expected for her to be grateful for this $1 million, and that they could take advantage of her as a younger creator, like a young Black woman, that they don't have to, like, her. She even found out her agents were like pressuring her to take that deal because they would be getting like a taste of the back end. Yeah. And so she fired her agents team. Like, Michaela Cole has done some really brilliant negotiations and is continuing to sort of have to, which I think that this actually really sucks. She always has to be at bat for herself because we've seen like how Hollywood absolutely wants to take advantage of her, and that's, and I think like when the BBC she did that talk, the McTaggart lecture, which is a huge deal in the UK. She was the first Black woman in the 42-year history of the talk to be asked to deliver, and it's to like the entire sort of UK television broadcast film industry. And that was the first time she talked openly about her sexual assault. She also explained how, she was just, the whole lecture, I have to recommend it. There's the actual like her 40-minute lecture is in written form, and it's also you can watch it on YouTube. but sort of she does this whole thing about how her experience in the TV industry, racism that she has encountered in school and in television, all the things she's gone through. And she ends it by saying, what a brilliant thing to discover. We've been wrong about some things. What a brilliant thing it is to grow. We're all going to die. Instead of standing here wishing for the good old glory days about the way life used to be before Mark Zuckerberg graduated, I'm going to try to be my best, to be transparent, and to play whatever part I can to help fix this house. What part will you play? And I just chills from she's up there. And that was 2 years ago. A 30-year-old woman, a 30-year-old Black woman standing in this room full of white execs, which is what it was, just telling them, and not even like in a sort of like a, she's very specific about the language she uses. She like herself in the profile is talking about how she knows that people sort of get tired of certain words. And I mean, this is really like sort of coded for like, white cis male, people get tired of being told that they're not inclusive enough, etc. So she uses like a different kind of language to sort of challenge them to not be complacent and not be upholding the status quo anymore in this really impassioned, brilliant way. And she's showing them how to do it, which is like, how exciting is that? Like, it's just,
It's all the different, it's a fully immersive show. You get the people making it, especially Michaela, you get the actual show itself. And then you get hours and hours of conversation with people after as well, because it is that kind of show.
Well, and you used the word genius in our outline to describe her, and I actually truly think that she's a genius.
Who knows what's next? I mean, it is almost a bit like, I don't want to say to her, it's a lot to do next, but...
but, like, just the idea that she's writing and acting and directing these things. Like, we haven't even talked about her acting. Like,
oh my God.
I know. I know. She's
such
brilliant.
a great actor.
Absolutely brilliant. And
but, like if you watch Chewing Gum.
And her backbend, her yoga backbend is beyond anything I could even imagine doing.
But if you watch Chewing Gum, she does so much physical comedy in that TV series. It's incredible. Like she can, she just has a wide ranging actor as well, on top of doing all these things and giving brilliant, speeches in front of, at important lectures. Like, it's just, I think she truly actually is a genius.
I completely agree. I
completely agree with you.
Yeah, like I know that we overuse the word a lot, and but not in this case at all. Like, this is like, it really is so apt in this case. Like, and I think that the other thing that I love so much about this show is that, like, while there are aspects of sort of like catharsis and wish fulfillment, and there's also, because we're seeing that even when Arabella is making like some fairly destructive choices, or is just sort of like, she's not like this perfect person at all. She has the same complexities as everybody else. She has certain compulsions. She makes, some impulsive decisions sometimes. Sometimes she's not a good friend. Like, there's no one in this show that is explicitly sort of written in a one-dimensional way. Like, I think you mentioned this earlier, Lisa, just like every single person is interesting in some capacity, even if they're like really sort of like toss away characters who we know aren't great.
They fill in this life that she has, that we can see what it looks like for her. Yeah. Even the police, they are very interesting too, and the therapist, everybody.
Yeah, I also was not prepared also to sort of go from really like sort of like, weeping in certain places to laughing so hard in the next episode, like I didn't fully, and I guess because I haven't watched Chewing Gum, but I'm so excited to now, obviously. I didn't fully understand the extent of the humor that would sort of like carry this show, because like although it does go to all these dark places and it is really difficult material, just the fact that like every time like T and Bella do their chant to each other, like your birth is my birth, your death is my death, like and I know that sort of that chant is I think takes on like so many different things depending on what moment it is in their lives. Like there's just this sort of the heart of the show is this friendship between the three of them, Bella, Kwame, and T, and seeing them sort of interact and have each other's backs or not have each other's backs, like whatever it is, you still like get such a sense of I don't know, just like such a sense of like hope and friendship, and it's really lovely as a centerpiece to all of the darkness and the drama. So I think I know where we all come from on this one, but does it pop?
It pops.
Yes.
It's so popping. I mean, we need
So
another
much.
word, I think, sometimes. But
I know.
yes,
I think
Yeah.
it's
definitely.
What if we call this? It's not just a pop. It's a genius pop.
Genius pop is exactly. Your IQ will be
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We also love to leave our episodes on something we recommend. So, Lisa, you want to go first?
Well, I'll just say that I have been watching. I mean, I would probably mention I Made a Story, but we just did that for an episode. So I will just mention that I have decided to rewatch all of Schitt's Creek again. Last week, I guess, or whenever you're hearing this. Recently.
Emmys.
Yes, Emmys. 15.
15
1-5.
Emmys, yeah.
The full cast, everybody. Rewatching it is just reminding me again how smart and funny and sweet and cozy and clever and, all of those words. So just really enjoying it. It's interesting rewatching shows, hey, because you don't have that same sense of wonder what happens next, but you're almost a bit more excited because you do know, like watching Patrick and David fall in love again is really very sweet because I didn't know for sure that's what was going to happen.
Of course, yeah.
When I was watching it. So it's really lovely just to kind of get the butterflies vicariously and enjoy that. So enjoying that show very much again.
That's awesome. AG, what about you?
I wanted to recommend more of a place this week. I was just going to recommend everybody go to a drive-in. I've been going to the drive-in over the past few months since the weather, got nicer, and it's a nice, enjoyable night out. The one near Vancouver is called the Twilight Drive-In, and it's in Langley, and it's a bit of a drive, but it's totally worth it. And they're doing social distancing, so you just park in every other space, and there's lots of room around you, and they have a great concession, and since no kind of blockbuster movies are being released right now, they're doing like classics. And so the other day we went to see The Karate Kid, we've seen Jaws there this summer, and they're just doing like kind of a parade of the classics, and awesome.
Probably where everyone is, there's a drive-in close to them, I'll bet. Yeah,
and it's just a really nice evening, and you can just you can even take chairs and set them up and sit outside your car if you want. And I highly recommend the experience to everybody.
It's nice. There's something to look forward to in this experience. So that's good.
That's totally good. I'm going to recommend a podcast. Specifically, I've been listening to It's Been a Minute with Sam Sanders, an NPR podcast. And very specifically, this episode called Reckoning with Race in Journalism. It is fan-freaking-tastic.
Okay. Is it American?
Yeah.
Oh, you said NPR. Sorry. Yeah.
NPR, yeah.
Okay.
If you even if you're not a journalist, I think it's so important to listen to this episode because it's really getting at the heart of so-called objectivity in journalism and how that has been a really flawed concept from its inception. And if you are a journalist, listen to this episode because there are so many things that particularly white journalists need to think about in newsrooms about what we have always been told is, again, objectivity.
Yes, yes.
And unbiased
Yes,
reporting.
exactly.
It's not real. It's all coded in whiteness, and we got a lot of work to do to scrap that and start over. So thanks so much, everyone, for listening.
Yeah, thank you all. Happy sweaty summer to all of you.
Yeah.
Stay cool.
Good luck,
Stay
folks.
cool.
You can hang out with us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. You could rate and review us 5 stars on iTunes. And if you want to email us, popthiscollective@gmail.com.
And thanks again to Andrea Gin for being our producer and our co-host every week right now during our crazy COVID time. So thanks so much, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.